Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today is going to be an awesome show. We're going to talk about pure deception. And pure deception is, to me, is where you can have somebody in your life and you thought you knew them, and all of a sudden the gates begin to open up and you realize this person isn't who you thought it was. And more importantly, it starts to affect your life as well. I'd like to welcome to the show a beautiful young lady who's coming on to tell her side of a story on what actually happened to her in this journey of pure deception. Welcome to the show, Ashley DiCapua. Did I get it right? No.
Almost. Ashley DiCapua.
I'm not Italian, but I get the last name. Welcome to the show, baby girl.
Thank you.
So let's get right down to it. Tell the viewers a little bit about who Ashley is.
So I am a mom. I have a 2-year-old son, almost. He'll be 2 years in December. I am originally from Long Island, New York, and moved down to the Greenville area of South Carolina about 2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Do you want to know what I do?
Oh no, you're from New York, man. What's that like growing up in New York, man?
So it's different than what you're probably picturing. So I was on Long Island and it was a bunch of small towns. I graduated high school with I think it was 102 kids.
Really?
So just like farm towns, a lot of beaches. I don't know if you're familiar with the Hamptons, all of Dune Road.
I've heard of it.
So that's where I grew up. So I was 5 minutes from the ocean, water all around. So yeah, I mean, I loved it. I loved growing up there in the small town that I was in. I had one stoplight in my whole town.
What was it like growing up there for you and your family? Your Italian heritage. That's a pretty close-knit family. You don't see, I guess, things that normal kids would probably see. Probably was pretty sheltered to some degree, right?
So my family, my parents are still together. They've been married, I think, 48 years. I could be off a couple of years, but yeah, a long time. I think they got married when they were 19. And my whole family, nobody in my family is divorced or separated or angry at each other in any way. They're all happy. I guess your typical normal family. So growing up in the family that I was in and the small town that I was in where there was really no crime or, nothing bad ever really happened there, I guess you could say I lived a pretty sheltered life in thinking that everybody was nice and had your best interests at heart and that nobody was really out to hurt anybody. Mm-hmm.
So you never had anything out of the norm ever happened to you growing up? I mean, it's almost like a Cinderella storybook so far. Like nothing can go wrong in this life for you. But something as you got older, things.
The saddest thing that I think happened to me growing up, my sister and I were almost 4 years apart. Right. And when we were younger, we were best friends. We would wrestle and play, and we only had each other because we were so young. We didn't have friends yet. But because of that big age gap, when she was in middle school and getting into high school, she was all into her friends, and I was still too young to really have friends to be going and hanging out with them. So right. I think that was the saddest part of my childhood, was when my sister didn't want to hang out with me anymore.
Are you and your sister close now? I mean,
we are. Yeah, she's actually getting married September next year. So it's been exciting. She recently, she's still in New York, but she came down, went wedding dress shopping. She loves my son. My son loves her. So yeah, we're close now. But if you're asking me about my childhood, what went wrong, I think that was the saddest part of my childhood.
Really? Well, we all could have a hell of a lot worse in our childhood. So you
You're right.
get older and you shared a little bit of your journey, and all of it was really shocking, to say the least, especially when you're like 17 and 18 and you start to get into the dating scene. That's when your life really start to evolve, and because you live sheltered, you probably didn't understand the art of relationships and so forth. Take us down that part of your what we might call the next stages to growing up.
Sure. So again, I always thought everybody was just nice. I didn't think that cheating even happened. I only saw it in like shows, drama shows. And to me, it was like, the 40-year-old men cheating with the secretary. So I always pictured it as like this gross thing that like older men do. And like, it doesn't happen, right? It doesn't happen to normal people. That's how my mind perceived the whole cheating and all of that. That was my exposure.
Right.
So my first relationship that really like mattered in high school, he, if I were to see him today, it would be fine. We would say hi and everything would be normal, but it was horrific. He cheated on me with all of my friends, all of like my best friends.
You didn't tell me that in the pre-interview.
Yes. So it was like all of my friends, plus, other people. It was like beyond anything that I could even like wrap my mind around.
Right.
So I remember like the first time that it came to my attention, I was like, no, like that's not, you're lying. Like that's not real. Like people don't cheat. He didn't cheat. Like, right. So my mind is just immediately like, no, that doesn't happen. So
Did you know him? Did he grow up in that? You said you only had a class.
He actually grew up in my town. So my high school was a combination of like 5 towns, but they were all small towns. So that's why it was all combined. But he actually grew up in my small town. Okay. But he was like a year older. So I wasn't like friends with him growing up. But yeah, so I think, so then he would always, make me believe that, no, it didn't happen. And, or if it did, if it was like undeniable that he did, then he would, get upset and tell me that he's going to change and everything's going to be better, blah, blah. So I don't know what the fuck is going on, right? I'm just like, all right, well, if you're telling me that, then it must be true, right? You're going to be better. And, because I always believe the best in people. And I thought like, wow, I actually feel bad for this person because he's so upset. He's about to lose me. He made a mistake. Let's forgive this, right? Let's give this person another chance. But then it would be this cascade, right? And the longer that I stayed in that cascade, the more I continued to get hurt and cheated on and, all of that, and trust being broken by somebody telling me that they're going to change, they're sorry, and then not changing, after that, that's a complete and utter, it breaks your trust, right? It would break my trust. So then the longer that I allowed this to go on, I was then betraying myself and my trust, and I was losing trust in Ashley. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really where I began to lose me and who I was being brought up and where I got to after that relationship. I think I had no idea who I was. I couldn't understand how my friends would do this to me, how this person that claimed to love me would do this to me.
Did you confront your friends about it? Or
they were mean to me. If I'm being honest, they would all bully me because I was like, the girl that no matter how many times he was with these other girls, I was always the one that like he would come back to and want and try to make it work. And, so I think that they resented that.
How old were you, Ashley?
Sorry. They weren't sorry.
How old were you when this first started?
Probably 15 or 16.
So do you eventually get out that relationship? What happens to the next relationship?
It was this not as bad as the cheating that went on in my first one, but I think at that point I was a broken person and I was attracting broken people because of that. Mm-hmm. And just not healthy relationships. Were
you trying to fit in? Because you said you were attracting broken people. You're still 15, 16, 17. Were you just really trying to fit in? Because
So that relationship actually went on and off for, I want to say, until I was like 20.
Really?
19, 20. I mean, I would like, date people here and there between that. But I stayed in that I don't want to say in that relationship because it wasn't always a relationship, so to speak, but just intertwined with that person way longer than I should have.
Why do you think you was intertwined with him from 15 years old to almost 20 years old, even though you were seeing other people and you just indicated that maybe you was attracting, if you were attracting the same type of environment, why was you going back to the environment that it's already been validated on from all of your friends what this individual were doing?
I think because I was so broken, I wanted at the end of it, looking back now, to feel that I succeeded in making this person change for me, right? To be better for me. And that's what I think I was so hell bent on, was that I needed to be the person that this person is going to change for, that he's going to love me enough to change and be better. But, now looking back, obviously it doesn't matter. Nothing that I would have done would ever change this person from being who he is. Right. So I think it became more of an obsession of, what can I do to make this person love me enough that he's going to stop cheating, that he's going to stop doing all of these things that are hurting me. And I equated it to me not being enough. So my self-confidence just kept going lower and lower and lower. So it was easy for me to then go back to this person and take him back and get into these recurring toxic situations, because I felt like shit about myself unknowingly, right? But being in these situations, how can anybody have any self-confidence left or trust even in themselves, let alone anybody else? Did
your friends or family come to you and be like, why are you? Because evidently they saw how he was, because he was with them. I mean, but the fact that you was with it for a long period of time, 15 to 17 or almost 20 years old, didn't your friends or family come to you and say, what the fuck are you doing?
I guess I don't think I ever really spoke much. I always kept a lot in. I didn't always tell people all of what was going on. Like my parents, I don't even know if they really knew for a very long time until the end, when I just like really couldn't take it anymore. And I was just so broken and low and just.
What was the end? Tell me the end. How did you get low? What was that like?
I don't know if I remember specifically what the end was, but he went away. So he went into the Army and I went out to visit him. This was in Kansas. He was stationed. And I got out there and he fell asleep one night and I went through his phone and there were dozens and dozens of messages from women, naked pictures, talking about having sex. I had found a shirt the first night that I had got there in his room, a woman's shirt, and he like played it off like it was his friends' wives, or I don't even know. So I think that after that trip, that was really like the end. And I think it helped because he wasn't physically where I lived anymore. So I think that was where I was able to break that chain, so to speak, and move on.
And then what happens to your life?
So then, like I said, I just found myself in the same type of toxic relationships, always wanting that validation of, this person loves me enough, that I'm good enough. Am I doing enough? Always trying to do. And it never being enough for these people. And I understand now, working with a life coach, a therapist, that when somebody like me, who, is empathetic and feels very low self-confident wise, they are literally a magnet to people who tend to have narcissistic traits.
Mhm.
So it's almost like a match made in heaven or hell, whatever you want to say. And it just will continue to happen. Women that don't feel good about themselves, that don't even know what a respectful and healthy relationship looks like, they're not going to be able to pick up on those first red flags or things that are a little bit off in the beginning of a relationship. And then when you accept those little things that are big things to a healthy and healed woman, once you've already accepted those little things, you're now down this terrible dark road where you're almost in this addiction because you're getting the highs of that dopamine when things are good, right? So it's almost like an addictive it's actually a proven thing that women in those situations, it's so hard for them to walk away from toxic relationships because of the dopamine release when things are going good versus when they're going bad. So it's almost like this addictive thing. It's like things go bad. You know that you need to get out. You have to get out. Many women will leave. But because of that addiction that's formed through our hormones when we're actually going through this, all those women go back, right? And it only will happen when they're completely gone and they get out of the situation. If in that period when they leave, they're actually able to work with somebody that can heal that trauma, heal that pain that they went through, and create a healthier woman out of that who won't accept that behavior anymore. Right. But when you're just continuously in this cycle, you're not talking to anybody about it. You are trying to figure it out on your own. You're taking all the blame on yourself. It is going to be very difficult, if ever, for you to ever get out of that situation.
How many times have you been in this cycle? You're only 28 years old. So you get out of the situation with
29. But so I had that first relationship in high school. I mean, there were little relationships in between, but I'm just talking about my main relationships through my life. It was that one in high school. I dated the next one from about 21 to 23, 24. Mm-hmm. And then 24-ish to about a year or so ago, mm-hmm. Was my last.
Was that toxic?
Yes. It ended up being very toxic.
Without getting too deep, what do you, because you're still trying to heal and you're not recognizing what's going on in your life because you're just 29. But you said that this last one was toxic. Without getting too deep, explain a little bit of what toxicity is at that particular point in your life, because we need to understand that this was repetitive. And this is what I tell people. If you lived in the situation that you lived in, this is all new territory for you. You can't really recognize what's going on because you're not recognizing your role in this as well as their role. So right. Tell me about the next relationship. This is going into your now adulthood. First of all, what took you to where you're at right now? Because you were once in New York.
Right. So I got pregnant with my son about 3.5, 4 years into my last relationship. And we wanted to have a home birth. It was a joint decision that a home birth was something that was very important to us. The cost of living was very high in New York. The politics we weren't so much in alignment with. So we wanted to get out of New York. And he had a family member who lived like southern North Carolina. So we saw Greenville, South Carolina, and liked the area and just kind of jumped into it because we knew that we wanted to get down there before our child was born. Right. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I said right. I'm listening.
So I don't know. What else do you want me to say about that, though?
What did you really know about your child's father at that particular point in your life? Because you're still young. You just all of a sudden just get up and move. But you're still trying to understand, you're still coming out of that, what might call your young part of your life, and you're now having a kid and so forth. What did you know about him?
I was 27 when we moved. I think that so I am a very against the grain type of person. The home birth, I'm very natural minded. I'm a very like non-toxic lifestyle, like I like my water filters, and I don't have any synthetic fragrance in my house. And for most people, that's a little bit out there, and it would be difficult for a lot of people to live that way. So this person that I had my son with was very much in alignment with all of that. Our diet, our lifestyle, the home birth, everything that most people would look at and be like, that's a little bit strange. So I think that was a huge thing for me, that this person was on the same page. I felt safe. I felt safe in who I was, because they were in alignment with that. So I think that was a reason why I stayed. He didn't ever cheat on me, and I have only ever known being cheated on in a relationship. So that was a really big thing for me. But we fought a lot. And if you ask me, what did you guys fight about? Unless I wrote it all down, I don't even remember, because they were such stupid things. But what do you
consider stupid things that you was fighting about? What was stupid?
Oh, I don't know. Like, for example, I would leave early to go to work in the morning, and I might leave like the honey out, or like my tea bag or something on the kitchen counter. And like, it would be a whole big thing, but then like other mornings, it would be completely fine that I did that. Right. But then one morning I did it and purposely he then left an entire mess on purpose, like way beyond, like an entire mess for me in the kitchen when I got home from work that day, because we worked different shifts. So he would work at night and I would work during the day. But yeah, just stupid things. And then there was so toxic to me is like not accepting, not taking responsibility for, what went wrong, not being able to communicate and come to a resolution when something comes up, right? So like, you take a pea and it turns into a mountain because nobody knows how to communicate properly. Nobody can take ownership properly of what they did wrong. And then because egos are involved, especially with people who tend to be a bit more narcissistic, they can't take any sort of blame or that they did anything wrong, or even just dealing with how their partner is feeling. If their partner comes to them and wants to talk to them about how they're feeling, that's something they can't do, right? It's just like a complete trigger for them, and they kind of explode as a result of that.
How do you maneuver now with that? I mean, this is another gray area of your life that you now have to deal with. But not only that, this is now almost your life partner. You getting ready to expect a child. Now you're seeing these you call it narcissistic now, but you didn't know what it was back then. So now you see these red flags. How do you now, what's the straw that says, I need to address this? Either am I safe? Am I not safe? I have a child. How do I maneuver now?
So at the top, before having my son, I was in this mindset of believing, and because it was told to me over and over again, that it's my fault, that if I just didn't do this, then I wouldn't have reacted this way. Or if you didn't do this, or if you were just a different person, basically, I wouldn't be the way that I'm being. Which that in and of itself is toxic, because you're in control of even if I'm next to somebody toxic, but I'm a healed person, nothing that they do should allow me to behave poorly because of what they're doing. Right. But I believed I was the problem. So in that situation, because I wasn't cheated on, I wasn't physically harmed, I had this person who was in alignment with all of my, out of the norm beliefs and ways of life. I felt, okay, well, I just need to change. I need to be better. I need to do more. I need to keep my mouth shut more. I need to do it, right? I. So when I was pregnant with my son, I tried that. I tried to keep my mouth shut. I tried to do everything to make him happy. I had my mom come and bring his family members down to visit us while I was still pregnant. And she didn't even get to say a thank you. But he left, actually, with his family members. No thank you to my mom. Just a complete catastrophe. And I think because I was pregnant and there were other people involved, my family, my mom, I couldn't hide it in myself anymore. I couldn't hide what was going on. I couldn't rationalize it on my own anymore, because there were now these other eyes that were involved. So I was forced to actually realize the reality that, no, this behavior is not normal. This is not my fault. I didn't do anything to create this. And now there's this other person who's seeing these things happen now, who is my validation of, no, you're not crazy. This is crazy, right? So in being the way I am, keeping everything to myself, not talking about it, and only having my partner's voice saying, well, it's you, it's you, it's you. What else are you going to believe? If you're being told something over and over again, eventually you're going to believe it, right? So
hold on, Ashley. His family came down. Did you ever look into his family? Did you spend time with his family to see if maybe some of this thing is genetic?
I didn't think at the time anything about genetic, but when I met him, I didn't believe that anybody, like, I just believe people have families, but you are who you are, and your family doesn't make you who you are. Boy, was I wrong. But I see now that, when you're dealing with somebody who came from a broken family, who had a father who wasn't so present, I don't want to talk so much about his family, but I realize now that that's the standard that's set in that family, and that's what their normal is, and that's what is accepted and okay. And I think that that's where it really matters, finding somebody who comes from a similar upbringing, right. A similar family dynamic, so that it just makes sense. Not that there's a right or a wrong necessarily, right? But just somebody that has the same morals and values when it comes to family.
In other words, it's hard to fix broken if you can't recognize that there's broken within your structure. So your mom and dad comes down. There's no...
My mom came down. My dad... So my parents have dogs and animals. They couldn't both come.
Okay.
But yeah, my mom came. She moved us down. She, brought family members of his down.
They see what was going on in the house, because now you're taking all of the blame.
And my mom stayed
brought it to your attention. Who brought it to your attention that something just isn't right? You're pregnant. You got to have a stress-free environment. You're not recognizing you're trying to change because you're not really understanding what's going on. But now here's somebody in the house. Who brought it to your attention that, hey, something just isn't right in this happy household?
My mom. My mom was in tears more than she wasn't when she was down with us, because she couldn't. So she was still living in New York at the time. They were trying to, get the house in order, sell it, put it on the market to come down. But they were still in New York and they couldn't do anything about it at that time. And she was just completely beside herself that she needed to leave me pregnant in that situation. And, you'd ask him and he would tell you that I was the problem, that I was the reason why all of, our family is broken. And, I'm not here to paint a picture on either side. Everybody has their own reality, but it was, as far as I'm concerned, a very sad, I don't even want to say, it was just a sad situation. And I was desperately trying to do anything and everything that I could possibly do to make it better during my pregnancy, to hopefully have a whole family. That's what I knew. Like, there was no lesson in my life of, well, this is what you do if you have a child that you're not with the father.
Right.
That wasn't a thing in my life. You have a baby and you are with that, not just because you have a baby, but, you have a family and you stick with that person no matter what, through thick and thin. So, I just couldn't imagine having this child and not being a whole family. So I did everything and anything that I could possibly think of to make it better, but it didn't matter. It was like the more that I tried to do more, the more that I tried to do anything, it was like I couldn't win. It didn't matter. Yeah, it didn't matter. And I think once my son was born and he walked out a week after he was born. Over
there for the birth?
The second half of the birth he came, because my doula she's like part of my birth team. Got on the phone with him and basically said, you have to be here. But refused to.
How does this, I don't want to go too deep with it because I can see it's an emotional topic for you. But my question to you is, that's not the norm for you because of how you grew up. But now this is.
It was, yes. So it was. So I didn't even have, so because of where I was at now in that point of life, there's a line of normalcy, right? I didn't know what that was. I had no idea where normal began, stopped, came. I didn't know. I had no idea what was going on. All that I knew was that I needed to survive. I needed to try to take the best care of my unborn child that I possibly could. And that was it, right? But I still had that tie to him where I wanted him to want to be that partner, want to be that father, want to be a family, right? So it was like this logical mind of, this is terrible. This is, you need to get out of this. You need to do everything possible to remove yourself from this. But then this other side of, well, no, I need to make this work. I need to have a family. My son needs to have a whole family. I want him to want to do this, to be a better person. So after my son was born, and he walked out, due to the birth certificate. I put both of our last names on the birth certificate, opposed to just his. He walked out, and in that moment, I was laying on the bed with my son. He was a week, freshly born little baby. I think I was nursing him on the bed, and he came in. We didn't say a word to each other. He just got his stuff and left, and I didn't say anything. And any other time I would have said, no, don't go. You need to stay, try to get him to stay. And in that moment, I was looking at my son, and I didn't have fear. I didn't have fear of what was I going to do if he walked out. It was, I have my son now. And what I'm looking at happen right now is not okay.
What was the fear? You highlighted something right there. You said, I looked at my son. He walks out. You didn't talk back because that was one of the things that you felt you needed to do. But you looked at your son at that brief moment and you said something very profound. You said, I had no fear. What was the fear factors that you was dealing with?
How was I going to support myself when I couldn't even physically get out of bed right now? How was I going to make food for myself and care for my son? How was I going to live taking care of my child without being able to go to work, without really physically being able to move yet from recovering from labor? How was I going to do this on my own with my son in a state away from all of my friends, all of my family? But I looked at my son, and because of him, this is going to sound so corny, but like his purity, like his complete innocence, just this little baby who has like no control over anything right now, and watching this person, his father, be able to leave, I knew that no matter how hard my life was going to be from that moment forward, it would have been harder to watch my son continuously see one of his parents leave him, and be unfazed by that. Or even just watching him, have my son watch his father leave his mother, who needs him in that moment, right? And I knew that that little boy was going to grow up, and that was what his reality was going to be. And I hated my reality for the last maybe 2.5 years of being in that relationship. I didn't know how to get out. I loved him to the capacity that I could in that moment of life. But I hated it. I didn't know how to get myself out of it. How
did you wind up getting out of it?
My son. When I made that decision that I was not going to allow, that's his father. He might see it with his father, with somebody else, and who knows? I don't know. All that I had control over in that moment was that my son, was not going to see that happen to his mother ever again. When did
you seek assistance for yourself to understand what just happened into your world? This is your kid's father. You're attracting the wrong individuals, but this is new territory for you. If it's not in your household, you still don't know it. So how do you fix what's breaking around you. You got a beautiful son, but you still got to have clarity in yourself. You said you sought treatment. How did that even happen in your life? What, I know all of it brought it there, but how did it wind up happening for you?
So I was completely in survival mode for the first year and a half of his life. I was barely sleeping. We nursed through the night. He would be up sometimes 3, 4, 5 times a night. I was running on empty. So I didn't. What's so crazy about this is because of that situation being the way it was, having a newborn and having minimal help until my parents moved down, I didn't even have time to process that I went through what I went through, right? And that I lost what I hoped would be a whole family. I didn't process that was no longer going to be a thing. I was just in constant survival mode. It was, nursing my son, getting him back to sleep, making food, cleaning the house, getting the laundry done, everything, right? There was not a moment where Ashley could sit and process any emotions or even process what I'm feeling in that moment. It was just, okay, done with this thing. What's the next thing that I have to do? All while working, trying to still work and support financially my son and I. So it wasn't until very recently that I started working with a life coach therapist who, if you guys need him, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but he is awesome. Everybody needs him in their life, I believe. But I started working with him maybe 2 months ago. And I know that, so like, I think I said to you briefly on our phone call yesterday, through all of this, because I didn't physically have anybody there sitting with me through my postpartum and recovery and all of that, I had God, right? And I was forced to build that relationship with God, put all of my faith in God, take away all of my control because I had none in that situation, and just rely on God getting me through this and my son through this and my family through this, right? So I was actually, believe it or not, in a pretty good place emotionally because I just had this unwavering faith through my postpartum that God is going to bring me through this. God is going to make this okay. Now, that's, to say, I also had nights where I was crying with my son, trying to get him to sleep because I just couldn't do it anymore. Right. But I believe God gave me, I could not have done that without God, without the strength of God. I did not have the strength to do that on my own. And I think finding that love in God got me through that, because it was like, he's got me. Somebody's got me through this when nobody else has me.
What did you take away from that? You found that strength from within. You get your life coach. When you look back on it, what did you find out about yourself, and what did you find out about the journey with your kid's father? What was the aftermath now? You got healed. What did you learn from all that now?
That I have more power than I believed I did, and that I needed to have somebody hold my hand. Thankfully, I did, to bring myself back to knowing that I have power and that I have a voice and that I am smart, and that what I think matters, what my beliefs are, they matter, what my thoughts are about things, they matter, and a lot of times they're right, and to stop second guessing myself, and to stop rationalizing bad behavior for the sake of, I don't even know what I was rationalizing it for, right? I learned to take who somebody is at face value and stop trying to change it. I continuously, through my entire life, thought that I could save everybody, that I was going to make them change, make them see the error of their ways, make them be a better person, make them treat others better, make them do the right thing, right? That wasn't my job. I do not need to do that. And I think what I said to my life coach the other day, there are so many people that go around and say, well, she's really what I need. She would be really great for me in my life. She's really what I need. But you know what? I've realized through all of this that I need to find who I need. I need to find who I need, who my son needs, and know that I'm worth that. I don't need to be what somebody else needs. I need somebody to come into my life, to my son's life, and be what we need. And that's not to say that you can't, relationship isn't a give and a take. It is, but you can't give more than what's being given back to you. And that's what I continue to do, because I fell short on who I was. I didn't believe enough in myself that I was worth somebody to actually treat me right, to do the right thing. I didn't believe that was possible. So it took healing and getting to the root of all of it for me to understand that I am worth somebody to come into my life and give me and my son what we need. And that I don't need to be groveling on the floor, cooking meal after meal and doing all of these things to try to get this person to just give me the bare minimum.
What are you doing now with your life now? It seems like you've unlocked the mystery to what transpired from there to now to here. What are you doing now?
So I bought a house, me and my son, we have a house down here. I am doing nutrition coaching. I help women who are struggling with infertility, and also postpartum. And I think that really took hold after having my son, because I realized how important having that community and support in that postpartum period really is, and how many people really struggle through that, even when they have, mountains of support around them. So yeah, I help support women with, their diet, their lifestyle, supplementation. And I love it.
How can the viewers get in contact with you for information about helping them with all of these topics that you just shared with us?
So my Instagram would probably be best. It's at My Nourished Belly.
Say that one more time.
It's my Instagram name is My Nourished Belly.
At Instagram.com.
So it's just my handle, like at My Nourished Belly. You could just search that on Instagram and it'll come up. Yeah.
Sounds good. You know what? Leave the viewers with something positive that you deal with every day to help you stay in that beast frame of mind.
I just remind myself that I am strong. I remind myself of everything that I have overcome, and that I made it through the other side of what would probably destroy a lot of people. And I built back stronger. I built a life that I never would have had if I didn't go through the tough that I went through. And I think that in those moments of hard and the trying and just the ugly, we have a tendency to succumb to that and maybe choose paths that go alongside the dark. But I think that if you can really pull yourself up out of that and not let it take a hold of you, your life is going to turn around and blossom in ways that you never thought were possible. But you just have to believe in yourself, and you got to put in the work to do it. And if you don't, no one else is going to. So you just have to find your why of why it's worth it to just keep going, to build something that you're going to thank yourself for tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I think my son was why I needed to do what I did, to, build a successful life and not crumble at what probably most people would have.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show.